We're $37 trillion in debt. We have a $2 trillion deficit a year, and that amounts to over $100,000 of debt per person. Where has the concern been about that? The Democrats keep saying on TV all the time, I hear this recurring theme. You know, we all agree that there's waste. Well, if you agree, then why didn't you do anything? Ever. Never. It's the same thing going on in Ukraine. For 4 years, no one tried to get these parties together to say, let's end the war. Donald Trump's doing it. Now they're mad about how he's doing it, the process. Focus on the end state. Do you want the end of the cessation of war and killing and dying in Ukraine? Or do you care about how many people are seated at a table and in what seat they hold? I care about the outcomes. When I talked to the president last night, I told him that we have been waiting for somebody to come in and to get the job done and stop giving us excuses, and he is that man. Holy smokes, guys. On Fridays, I always tell you, you never know what's going to happen over the weekend. And true to form, it was unbelievable. Trump on fire all weekend. I was able to go to CPAC. I had a great event down in Florida that I spoke at, and then came back and went to CPAC on Saturday. Got to hang out with my old colleague, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Mercy Schlapp, countless other people that I saw, Elise Stefanik, Patrick Bet-David. I put a bunch of those pictures on my Instagram if you want to go check out. It was kind of cool, though. It's like a college reunion for conservatives every year. You get to go see all the people that you don't necessarily see in person. It was amazing, though. I sat next to the president of Argentina, Milei, and then Prime Minister Duda of Poland's next to him. And I'm trying to remember, it was literally unreal how many people were sitting there. Talked to Mark Levin for a while, but it really is a cool experience because you get to see all of these people on the right that you don't bump into every day, or maybe you text with here and there. And so it's really cool. And then capping it all off, President Trump's speech, unbelievable speech that he gave. Hitting a lot of highlights. I had a conversation. I talked to the president last night. He is in such great spirits. He knows how much he's getting done. He told me, and I generally don't reveal a lot of our conversations, but he said, we're well on track to $1 trillion in savings. It's unbelievable. $1 trillion. And all these Democrats, it's just unbelievable how they sit back and say, like, well, we've always known that there's waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. I'm like, well, then you're basically admitting you did nothing about it. Anyway, it was a great conversation with the president. He has been a huge supporter of mine since I left, and always good to catch up with him in person. Anyway, and by the way, then he kicked off this morning. He had the French President Macron in early for a G7 video conference that dealt with Ukraine. He was up and at him and then spoke with Macron again, had this press conference with him. We have a huge week lined up for you, though. I want to get back to CPAC in a second, but Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee is here tomorrow. Congressman Andy Harris, the head of the Freedom Caucus, he's here. Big budget showdown going down in Congress. We're going to talk to both of them about that. Erica Donalds, the wife of Byron Donalds, who might be the next first lady of Florida. She's going to join us. Selena Zito, she's going to be here on Wednesday as well. Amazing panel on Thursday. Jessica Anderson of the Sentinel Action Fund. You remember all the great work that they did with Ashley Hayek, America First Policy Institute, and America First Works. And then Larry O'Connor will be here on Thursday. And then Friday, this is a conversation you'll hear nowhere else. Derek Lyons was the staff secretary under Donald Trump during his first terms, and Jordan Karam was his personal aide. I'm going to have them both here to give you guys insight that nobody else will bring you about what it's like to work with him and get stuff done. So when you see now Will Scharf, who, by the way, came on the show, making those announcements about the executive orders, like Derek's going to talk to us about how that stuff happens. So if you're a political junkie like I am, and I hope that's part of the reason you come to the show, is that I'm going to have this conversation with the two of them about what it's like to work with Trump, how he gets information, how he digests information, and nobody else will ever show you this. So that's Friday, obviously a big week ahead of us, but I'm excited for the Friday conversation just because so many people ask me what it's like to work for Donald Trump, how he consumes information, how he interacts with people. Obviously, I can give you my perspective. I try to do that all the time, but Jordan Karam and Derek Lyons are going to do it like nobody else does, and that'll air on Friday. So huge week coming your way. Getting back to CPAC for a second, there was a straw poll. There always is, right? And obviously, we don't have an election. So they asked, who do you want to see run in 2028? Who would you vote for? And it's a straw poll. So this is not scientific, and this is of people that are attending CPAC. But there's, I don't know, close to 10,000, I think. J.D. Vance, 61%. Do you know who the number 2 was, by the way? Steve Bannon. No offense, but I don't think Steve's ever going to run for office. We'll have him back on the show. I'll ask him point blank. But he doesn't want to run. And then Ron DeSantis at 8, and no one else even close to that. So what this reaffirms to me is that this is basically J.D. Vance's for the taking. And he's doing a phenomenal job so far. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. But just shows you that we're already there as a movement to say, yeah, J.D. Vance, for all the babies that didn't know why Trump picked him, I think they're all seeing now. He's extremely impressive. Great story. So articulate. Runs circles around the morons in the media. Anyway, I'm excited. I've known JD for a while. I think he's a great guy, and I'm excited to see him start to move into this position because we need to get ahead of this. And frankly, there might be some kind of nominal primary. We got ways to go. We got midterms first, but like I think that he is the future of the party right now. Obviously, look, we'll go through a process and we'll see, but it's good to know that we have such a deep bench right now, and that right now I would assume he's the leader of it. But in other personnel news, right? I was just excited that Kash Patel was named or confirmed as FBI director. And then what happens last night? It was funny. Almost like 10 minutes after I hang up the phone with President Trump, I look down and I'm like, there's an announcement on Truth Social that Dan Bongino is going to be deputy director of the FBI. Boom. Liberal minds blowing up. I was putting this all over pictures of Dan and I up on social media. I was texting him, dude, this is amazing. Congratulations. If you're a criminal, watch out. Between Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, you might want to rethink your line of work. This guy, he's going to be awesome. Dan, as you know, it's funny. Like the media this morning was wigging out. MAGA podcaster Dan Bongino. Oh, really? Because, he was a congressional candidate. And before that, he spent years at the FBI. He was a New York City cop, got a ton of law enforcement. And the funny thing is about the podcast, which I think that's meant as a media insult to Dan. When you looked at the coverage of Butler, Pennsylvania, and what went wrong and what was happening, Dan Bongino was at the forefront of dissecting that. Because he's been in law enforcement, he has amazing sources still in law enforcement. So I know that the media meant it as an insult, MAGA podcaster Dan Bongino. But the truth is this guy's really tough on crime. He's a smart, he was a smart Secret Service officer. He's got a background as a New York cop. This is the kind of guy I want leading the FBI, who thinks outside the box, who understands how to get to the bottom of an investigation and who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. It's going to be an incredible team, and I'm excited for that. It's amazing to see how they're like, oh my God, normally it's a career civil servant. Again, to the norms and the traditions. Welcome to the Trump administration, folks. There are no norms or no traditions. It's a joke. Anyway, I am super excited, not because Dan's been a friend and actually a mentor. When I got into independent media and stuff, Dan Bongino gave me some great advice about what I should prioritize and how, and even with books. He's been a good friend. He's been a good mentor. And I'm excited that I think about this, by the way. That guy's got one of, if not at times, the top podcast in the country. Millions and millions of dollars on the line. And he's giving it all up to serve as the deputy director of the FBI. I don't know what the deputy director makes, probably $160,000, $170,000. It's not horrible money, but it's not the millions that he makes. And he built, I've talked to him a million times about his podcast, and he basically lost that congressional race in Maryland and thought he was going to win. It was that close. He had no backup plan. And so he jumped into podcasting before it was cool, then moved to Florida. But I think to myself, God, can you imagine now his kids are grown and all that? But that's a sacrifice, folks, to give it all up. And while the media wants to make these little jabs at him, I thank him for serving our country. It's a huge sacrifice for him and his family. On the flip side of bringing people into the government, Trump now made some big announcements over the weekend as well, that there were some people that would be leaving government service. The leader of that effort over at the Pentagon is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to why C.Q. Brown was removed, but the bottom line is the President of the United States has the right to have the senior advisors, whether it's the EPA or the DOD, that he wants around him to make key decisions to protect the country. So he relieves C.Q. Brown. But the interesting thing is who he's going to replace him with. He announced that retired 3-star General Caine is going to be the next chairman. Now, for those of you who don't know, a couple things that are really interesting. This guy's a retired 3-star. So he's over at the CIA, I think, right now. And they're going to bring him back on active duty. They'll give him his 4th star, and then he'll become the chairman. But when the name got announced, I thought to myself, God, I've heard this before, because Trump always talks early in the administration when he was trying to figure out how to deal with Afghanistan and Iraq. He met Caine coming off the stairs. He was greeted by him. Take a listen to what Caine, and the story that Trump tells.
I said, "What's your name?" "Sir, my name is Raisin." "What the hell kind of a name?" I said, "Raisin, like the fruit?" He goes, "Yes, sir, Raisin." "What's your last name?" "Caine, Raising Caine." I said, "You got a big thing." It's true. I want to know, why is it going to take 2 years to knock off 2 or 3 or 4%, which is what we had left? "It won't, sir." I said, "Tell me why it won't." "It won't, sir. If we attack them in a different manner, we can do it much faster." "Okay, General Raising Caine, how fast can..." "Sir, we can have it totally finished in 1 week." I said, 1 week? I was told 2 years. 1 week. "That's right, sir. We're only hitting them from a temporary base in Syria. But if you gave us permission, we could hit them from the back, from the side, from all over, from the base that you're right on right now, sir. They won't know what the hell hit them."
All right. That's who he wants. A doer, a disruptor. I sat in the Situation Room with President Trump as he was given PowerPoint after PowerPoint about what to do in Afghanistan, for example. And it was always like, well, here's basically the course of action that'll allow us to keep doing it. And Trump would get so upset because he's like, why are we doing this? Why are you telling me just that we're going to keep doing what we're doing? He wants someone that can actually get things done. And you heard him talk about the interaction he had with Lieutenant General Raising Caine, his call sign. Because the guy basically said, take the handcuffs off me, allow me to actually go prosecute the bad guys, and I'll get it done. We've got all these silly rules of engagement, and I can't do my job, and I can't win. Trump goes, yeah, boom, get it done. And that's why he's bringing them back, because he wants results. He doesn't want excuses. Anyway, he also fired the chief of naval operations, Lisa Franchetti. The media is all up in arms about her, too, because she's the first female CNO. Okay, this might have been the issue under the Biden administration. You know, the first this, the first that. We always talked about that, right? Identity politics. I think Trump's bottom line is, I see problems, and this is actually the U.S. Naval Institute News. No, like, right-wing organization. So the Navy has been plagued by ship delays, recruiting shortfalls, issues the service faced before Franchetti became CNO. The Navy failed to meet its recruiting goals in fiscal years 2022 and 2023, then did meet them in 2024, the first year under Franchetti. For whatever reason, Trump doesn't feel like she's doing the job. I don't want to speak to that necessarily because I don't know what he sees or saw, but he's making changes. And I will just say this right now, just so we are 100% clear, folks. This isn't the last 3 or 4 star that you're going to see switched out. Trump wants change. He wants his people. He doesn't want excuses anymore. So I know it's not traditional and how the norms go and blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is that this is a president who is not only asking for, but demanding change, efficiencies, effectiveness. And Pete Hegseth, the DOD, the Secretary of Defense, has made it very clear that their number one mission is the mission. It's not DEI. It's not, do you feel good? Do you want a hug? It's making sure that we are a lethal warfighting machine ready to deter our enemies, and if they're stupid enough to attack us, to take them on and defeat them, which is what it should be. Elon Musk had a field day over the weekend, by the way, telling two things that came out that are interesting. Number one, he sent out a tweet and said, hey, I want you by Monday at 5 o'clock to tell me 5 things that you've done. 5 things. Now, I will say, that might not be the best, most... That timetable may be a little off, right? Who knows? Maybe somebody was on vacation. Maybe they're on maternity leave. I don't know. But the bottom line is that asking federal employees or any employee, send me 5 things you did. There's no... Elon has followed up. He basically was like, I'm not trying to judge you. Just say 5 things. We'll determine later whether or not those are good things or bad things, or whether we have to maybe do this week over week. But there was something that was really interesting that was pointed out over online that I thought made total sense. A lot of the focus has been on the low performers. Rightly so. I mean, if you're not going to work, or in a lot of cases, the President Trump has said he believes that people have a second job. Maybe they're not even showing up, or, so that's attacking the low workers, the low performers. But it also is an opportunity to recognize the high performers, right? If you're writing back, I did this, I accomplished that, I saved this much money, I revamped this program. It's an opportunity for you to shine. These are the people we need to keep. These are the people we need to promote. It's a double-edged sword. What are you afraid of, though? I mean, aside from the fact that if you were on vacation, okay, I get that, and you can write back, I was on vacation, I didn't do anything. Okay, that's allowed. But if you weren't on vacation, think about this. The work day, the work week is 5 days. So could you say you did one thing a day? And even if that one thing is maybe you're, an office manager and you called to get someone to fix the copier. Maybe you replenish supplies. This isn't a high bar. Name 5 things you did. Why is that difficult? If you look around the folks in the media, they're all freaking out. Now, I get it. I will say this. I know a lot of people, because of where I live, who work in the federal government. A lot of the folks that I served with in the military are federal employees, because there are hiring practices that favor veterans. So a lot of folks do go into government service after their military careers. I'm sensitive to the fact that people are losing their job. I feel bad. I mean, maybe you have a family, maybe you don't. Maybe you just, you have to pay your rent. And I don't want anything ill. A lot of folks that I know that work in the government are good people. They do work hard. Some of them are just hampered by the government regulations that don't let them be the best they can be. But we are seemingly in the media to let that focus, right? Starbucks, which I could care less about, just laid off 1,000 people. Big, huge manufacturers over the last several years have announced layoffs, especially during the Biden administration, especially during COVID. Where was the outcry for those people? But when the federal government starts looking and realizing how much waste, fraud, abuse, inefficiencies, duplicity exists, everybody wants to wig out. And I feel bad for these folks. Like, I actually don't want anybody. It's just who I am. But I also think about this. You hear me talk about the debt and deficit all the time. We're $37 trillion in debt. We have a $2 trillion deficit a year, and that amounts to over $100,000 of debt per person. Where has the concern been about that? About what this is doing to us as a country, to the ability to us to fund certain things. We spend more on interest on the debt than our national defense. Why isn't that outrageous? As I said last week, we should be applauding Elon for finding this stuff. And they all want to snipe at him. Oh, he didn't, he was wrong on this number. Okay, whether it was 8 million or 18 million, is that really what we should be focusing on? Or is it the fact that for X number of years, we blew $8 million or whatever that number is? The Democrats keep saying on TV all the time, I hear this recurring theme. We all agree that there's waste. Well, if you agree, then why didn't you do anything ever? Never. You passed appropriations bills. You didn't stop it from happening. You didn't call it out. And now you're answering, oh, well, we all agree. Well, you didn't. For decades, we wasted a ton of money. Just wasted it. And now Donald Trump's getting the job done. It's the same thing going on in Ukraine. For 4 years, no one tried to get these parties together to say, let's end the war. Donald Trump's doing it. Now they're mad about how he's doing it, the process, the pageantry, the imagery, the historical norms. Focus on the end state. What do you want? A more effective, efficient government? Or do you want everyone to feel good? Do you want the end of the cessation of war and killing and dying in Ukraine? Or do you care about how many people are seated at a table and in what seat they hold? I care about the outcomes. And sometimes it may not always be pretty. But for too long, we as the American people have been told, oh, it's okay, or it can't get done, or we always do it this way. Finally, we've got somebody that's willing to shake things up. When I talked to the president last night, I told him that we have been waiting for somebody to come in and to get the job done and stop giving us excuses. And he is that man. All right, before I continue, I want to tell you about another great man, someone who I've gotten to know over, well, it's probably been a year and a half now, but there's a gentleman named Leo Grillo. He was on a road trip. He came across an abandoned Doberman, severely underweight, clearly in trouble. And Leo rescued that Doberman, got him back to health, named the dog Delta, which stands for dedication and everlasting love to animals. And Delta Rescue has turned from that one dog that Leo rescued into the world's largest no-kill sanctuary. Sanctuary, you hear me always use that word. I screwed it up last week and I said shelter, but Leo schooled me the first time because it's not a shelter. They're not looking to rehouse these animals, dogs, cats, horses, whatever. It's to give them the care, the support, the nutrition that they need for life. It's an amazing place. If you go to deltarescue.org, you can get a look at what I'm talking about, see an amazing set of videos about what it is, what it does, what it's become because of Leo. I told Leo the other day, by the way, because they're not that far outside of LA. And by the way, he told me about the plan that they had. They were ready for fires. They've got their own little system there. Should there ever be an issue. He's really smart guy. He doesn't look for government handouts though. It relies solely on the contributions from people like me and you. And I put my money where my mouth is last week. I held it up. This is the receipt from Delta Rescue. It's got my name on there. I'll cover up the address. I went and made a donation because I believe in what Leo is doing and what Delta Rescue is doing. So please go to deltarescue.org, make a donation. While you're there, there's an estate planning kit tab at the top. Click on that. And if you have an old 401k or old stock that you could think about maybe talking with your tax professional, because it might give you a short-term tax benefit and a long-term benefit to Delta Rescue to help them be an enduring mission. So go to deltarescue.org, check it all out. All right, before we get back, I want to tell you about, you guys have heard me whine before. My journey into wellness, it's an ongoing mission to get healthier. One of the things that I do, though, is I switched my shoes as well. I check out this pair of Gravity Defyer shoes that I now have 3 separate pairs, one for like playing around in the gym or going to playing pickleball with. I've got one for running and one for walking. It's a shoe like no other. It's got this Verso technology in it, and it's the same stuff they build trampolines, and you feel it. Like the second you step into a Gravity Defyer shoe, it's got unbelievable support and cushioning that I've never felt with another shoe, and I've tried them all. It's got wide sizes. I have a wide foot, that's what I use for it. But it'll improve your body's biomechanics. It'll return energy with every step. It helps align your body. If you're someone who stands on your feet for long hours or goes for long walks, trust me, you will tell me it's a shoe that works as hard as you do. So they're a total game changer. Here's the best part. Listeners of the Sean Spicer Show get an extra 50% off orders of $120 or more. Just text Sean, SEAN, to 91888 to claim your deal. That's half off the normal price, right? So text Sean, SEAN to 91888. Or you can always go to GD, Gravity Defyer, GDEFY.com and take your first step towards a better journey to wellness. All right. As I mentioned, so much going on with the federal government, tons of whining, but a group of folks that is not very happy right now is the media. Oh, yeah. So check this out. We've talked about ABC settling with President Trump, Meta, which is the big corporate name for Facebook, settling with President Trump. Then there's the CBS lawsuit because of them editing that 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. I think that's going to end in a settlement. We talked the other day about the Navy veteran that sued CNN. He got a settlement. And now it's MSNBC's turn in the barrel. They were sued for $30 million for defamation, claiming a doctor in Georgia was performing mass hysterectomies. Oh my God, I can't even say the word. At an ICE facility during the first term of Trump. And we don't know exactly how much, but they've agreed to settle it. And it all had to do with this segment that Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, and my old buddy Jacob Soboroff had, because they were apparently spreading lies and hoaxes. They ruled that the doctor was defamed by MSNBC. And subsequently, it wasn't just the money. The guy received like death threats, lost his job. I mean, it's pretty pathetic and sad, to be honest with you, what happened. But it's funny, when you listen to a lot of the media commentary, they talk about how like the attacks on the media. Okay, well, wait a second. This is the judicial system. They were found guilty, civilly liable. So how do you claim that democracy is under attack? It's democracy. It's the court system. It's the judicial system of our very democracy that's finding them guilty. They don't have impunity. Yes, the Sullivan New York Times case gives them a lot of cover, which hopefully that will get reversed. But the bottom line is this: why do if they're attacked in any way, somehow democracy is under attack, the First Amendment's under attack? No, it's actually alive and well. And this proves it, that when they malign someone, when they defame somebody, you can hold them accountable. And they even have laws in place because of the Supreme Court that protect them more than any of like you and I have. So don't believe the hype about this crap. In fact, there's a brand new poll out that shows Americans trust Donald Trump more than all of the legacy media. That's right. When they polled this, they said Americans' trust of President Trump versus the media. This YouGov poll shows that 44% of Americans trust Donald Trump and 29% trust the media. It's a 15-point spread. Now, I get fascinated by these things, to be honest with you, because I look at this and I'm like, okay, what this says to me is, for all their whining about Trump and misinformation, the American people are smarter than the media gives them credit for. They dig deeper. They look at stuff. They're not just buying into these left-wing headlines that make accusations. And I think it pisses the media off. I think it does, because they think of themselves as so sanctimoniously arrogant, elitist folks that they have to be right on everything, and that the folks on the right are just horrible people. But I said this before, at the beginning of Trump 2016, after the Trump 2016 election, before 20, like, they were rewarded. People freaked out. The resistance, subscriptions to the New York Times and the Washington Post went through the roof. The ratings at MSNBC and CNN went crazy because they had convinced people that Trump was bad, and all of the people who worked for him, like myself, were horrible people. I was joking with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We were talking about this backstage. What a different environment it is. And it's like, now it's cool to be Trump, pro-Trump. Like, people are wearing the hats in public. They're doing the dance, boo, boo, boo. Athletes and celebrities, and people don't mind associating themselves with Trump. Like, they ran from Trump last time, and now it's cool. So I get a kick out of this poll because they keep failing and they don't know where to go, because last time, as I said, it was like huge ratings, go, go, go. And now it's the opposite. The New York Times and the Washington Post subscription rates are way down because people got hip to the joke that they were lying to them. They were spreading misinformation to them. And the same thing with the ratings to MSNBC and CNN. They're plummeting. Alternative media like this is on the rise. It's ascent. That's why I think what Dan Bongino is doing is so amazing, because he's at the forefront of this. Dan's got like one of the most popular shows in the country, and he's giving it up to go into government. Hopefully his people will come on over. But anyway, I just think it's so telling. The poll, like, despite what they say, when, I talk about this, we voted in November, we got change. We vote with our wallet every day by what companies we support. And that's why I love and appreciate the sponsors that come on the show. Because these are good companies that aren't woke. They didn't buy into the DEI crap. We can also vote with what we watch, what we spend time with, who we subscribe to. Stop watching these shows. Stop giving the New York Times money and views and clicks. Come on over. I'd love your click. I'd love your share. But do that. And it's showing. People are tired of them. By the way, we talk about this a lot, but the media truly is failing. First, it was Chuck Todd and Jim Acosta, Don Lemon, and now MSNBC announced that Joy Reid is getting rid of her show, and they're replacing it with like Michael Steele, who's the former RNC chairman, and Alicia Menendez and someone else. But it's unbelievable. They're getting rid of Joy Reid for the same reason. The ratings just aren't there. Anyway, I want to talk, though, about some other things that are happening, because this plays into this idea of the media, what they're reporting and not reporting. This morning, Apple announced that it plans to invest more than $500 billion, yeah, I said that with a B, in the United States and hire 20 million people over the next 4 years. With expansion, this is according to them, with expansion and construction planned from coast to coast. Do you remember a few weeks ago we talked about the SoftBank? Masa-san, he came in and talked about billions of dollars of investment. Here's Apple saying the same thing. We're putting the money back in. We've talked about some car companies. For all the hype about the tariffs, look at what's happening. These big companies are saying, okay, it's just smarter and safer to invest here in America, to hire more Americans, to build in America, not have to worry about this. Media won't tell you that, but that's the reality. The policies of Trump, putting America first, is actually helping us as a country build, manufacture, invest, and hire. If we had just gone down the same old road with Kamala Harris or whatever, nobody would be doing this. That's a fact. Tim Cook, the head of Apple, recognizes that it's smart business for his company to hire Americans to invest in America. It's safer in the long term, at least for the next 4 years. I'm sure some Democrat in the future would cave. But we're getting results. And it's not just on the investment front. There was a story this morning that I kind of, again, when I read it, I had to deduce for myself the outtake, because I'll read you the headline. This is in the Associated Press. It says, they crossed the Darien Gap to reach the U.S. Now, boat by boat, migrants are returning. Okay, well, if you don't know where the gap is or why, who's returning to what, you may not get this. And that's why I laughed when I saw this, because it was almost like they felt an obligation to report the story but not tell you anyway. So let me tell you this, because this is out of Panama, and it says they once braved the jungles of the Darien Gap, tracking days along the perilous migrant passages dividing Colombia and Panama with a simple goal: seek asylum in the U.S. Now, boat by boat, those migrants, mainly from the Andean nations of Venezuela and Colombia, have given up after President Trump's crackdown on asylum and are returning to the countries they once sought to escape. One of those speedboats zipped through dense jungle-cloaked rivers near the Colombia-Panama border Sunday, headed south. Inside were around 20 migrants clinging to their backpacks and shielding themselves from the water spray. They're going back. They're going back. Do you how big is it? The shift? Remember when Biden said, oh, like it's closed or whatever? They have realized Trump's not kidding. The signal that it sends isn't just about expelling the people that are in this country out. And by the way, Tom Homan spoke at CPAC Saturday. Wow. That guy was on fire, and he means business. And I think that's part of the point here. If you're trying to come up through South America and cross into America, seek asylum, and you know now, it's not going to work anymore, then you're going to turn around. But it's the policy, the leadership, the symbolism makes a difference. These folks knew that if they reached the border, they could claim asylum when Biden was president. And they'd be let into the country and never seen them again. And then they'd probably get some, temporary protective status or what have you, get a green card, and eventually citizenship under Biden. But now they know that that's not the case. And I think that that's the difference, is that like all of these examples, Tim Cook and Apple coming back, the people not going up, that is a sea change in Washington. We recognize how much of a difference it makes in all of these areas. Everyone wigs out about the tariffs. What's happening? Companies are saying, I don't know. There's a little uncertainty, or maybe I don't want to deal with it, or I don't want to pay for it. Who cares? But I'm going to come back to the U.S. I'm going to hire here. I'm going to invest here. Boom. On immigration, the word has gone out. You're not welcome here. I know Kamala used to say, don't. But the reality is that they knew that was a joke. It was like, don't, and I'm going to wink my eye at you. It's okay. You can really come. There's no more hotels. There's no more cell phones and gift cards for you. We're not letting you stay. Tom Homan's the new sheriff in town. So I'm just saying it's a big, big, big deal as far as I'm concerned. And, I think that we need to give credit to Trump when it comes to this. Because I covered the manufacturing portion, right? All that investment coming back to the U.S. slowly but surely. The immigration piece. And I want to talk about the culture piece. The governors were in town this weekend. That's why I saw Sarah. And they had this dinner, I think it was Friday night. And Trump's talking about his effort to keep men out of women's sports. I want to play you this clip because this shows you how this goes down. He's not afraid to call it out. Take a look.
I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation, and we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens. We're going to protect.
That's, again, I talked to you about the business piece, immigration piece, and now the cultural piece. He's calling it out. And by the way, if you're Maine and you're, I don't think he's kidding. You don't comply with the law. You don't get to pick and choose which laws you comply with. Title IX. If you don't do that, we're going to cut you off on your federal funding. I wonder how the people in Maine feel about that. I know she wants to be the progressive woke governor. Maybe Maine's not the most conservative state, but there are so huge. I mean, I've been up there a bunch. That's 2nd District in Maine. They love their NASCAR, their guns. Like, they're not having that. So I think it's to me fascinating how this is all happening. And I want you to understand part of the reason I brought up the media earlier is because they don't want to cover this. They love to snipe and to go after Trump for his picks and whatever. But the reality is he's keeping his word on all these things and getting results. And that's the key thing. It's not just rhetoric, no excuses, but actually getting things done. I think that's huge. I think it's important and it's huge. And so as you talk to folks about what's going on, remind them of that. We're getting results and we're having it happen. All right. Mark Penn, who was, you may recall him, he was one of Hillary Clinton's pollsters, put out a brand new poll that he leads. And I want to just read you the synopsis. He said, voters are mostly liking what they see in the first month. Remember that. By the way, I said that to the president last night. I cannot believe it's only been a month of you being president. By 57-43, voters say that Trump is doing a better job than Biden in the advanced poll that's coming out. Job approval at 52, but closing the border, cutting waste are hugely popular. Think about that. Getting it done, hugely popular. Now, some people don't want to pay attention to actual results, like James Carville. Take a look at this clip. This is him on SiriusXM radio with Dan Abrams talking about how he sees this stuff playing out. Take a look.
This is what I believe. I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse, in particularly a collapse in public opinion.
All right, you heard that right there. The collapse of Trump in 30 days. Look, James has been in the game a long time. Say what you will about the guy. But this, I think, is going to come back to bite him. I was at CPAC. I talked to the president last night. People are fired up. They love this stuff. The results. And the idea that Carville's, he's going to collapse in 30 days. Are you kidding me? Right now, people, I think our buddy Jim McLaughlin, who did the straw poll at CPAC, it was like 99% when you add strongly and mildly support what President Trump's doing. I'm not kidding. It was, and granted, okay, yeah, you can argue those are MAGA folks, but that's my point. The base is intact. They love this guy. So I'm just telling you, the media is like clinging on. They're the last vestige. We've seen all of the folks in corporate America slowly capitulate and cave, because I think that they know that their time is up. Okay. But the media wants to just cling on to this and pretend like somehow everything's an outrage, hair on fire, running around. If you want to predict anything, predict that like within a year, they're going to be gone. There will not be a CBS News. It's just like they're getting embarrassed and it's costing them too much money. All right. There's two other things I want to touch on with you guys. Over the weekend, I dropped a video, as I do now on Saturdays and Sundays, just to, something that maybe didn't fit in the show that I think is interesting. And I noticed this trend of this woman named Lindy Lee. She's a far left progressive that had been a massive Kamala supporter and Biden supporter, and now suddenly has become the little darling of the conservative world. And so I dropped a video just explaining what's going on. Let me play you a clip of that. Have you heard of a woman named Lindy Lee? If not, let me tell you a little of who she is. Lindy is the new it girl in many conservative circles. All right, well, at the end, I invited her on the show because I said, all right, if you want to prove or make the case that this isn't just some election night convert where you suddenly realize that you are out on an island by yourself, come on, explain yourself. Because I don't know how you can sing and champion the virtues of the progressive left and Kamala Harris, and then the day after your party gets shellacked, somehow be like, I'm a conservative. It doesn't jive. What is your ideological basis for that? What, were you suddenly pro-life? Are you suddenly, smaller government, less taxes? Like what changed in like 8 hours? So we're working on a time. I'm going to have her on. I'm going to keep my word. I'll give her a platform. I'll be nice to her. I want to hear her explain this. As I said in the video, just so we're clear, if you want to go watch the whole thing, it's on my YouTube page. I am in politics, you need addition, not subtraction, if you want to grow a movement. I welcome folks over. But the difference is that I welcome you over, come on in, you're at the back of the line kind of thing. You don't get to jump the queue because you suddenly think that, you're louder than everybody else and you want to bash your former team. She called Donald Trump some pretty bad things up until like a month ago, and she sung the praises of Kamala. So I want to hear her out. So anyway, but on a lighter note, our friend of the show, Mike Lawler, congressman from New York, was on, and I don't know why I did this. So this is the unfortunate part, but he went on CNN. They've got this like fake funny show on Saturday nights. Maybe they just needed to guess. But anyway, he had a little ditty. Let me show you.
Lives by one song. It was a Beach Boys hit back in the day. Aruba, Jamaica, Panama, I'm gonna take you. Bermuda, Bahama, Greenland, come home to your mama. Key Largo, Toronto, Trudeau, why don't we go? Off the Mediterranean Sea, there's a place called Gaza-Lago. That's where we've gotta go to get some USAID.
All right. That's a great way to end today's show. Great week. By the way, just want to put this on your radar. On Thursday night, I'm hosting a Zoom call, and I'd love for you to join me. I've talked to you guys a lot about my wellness journal, and I've not just taken the probiotics from Just Thrive and done all that stuff in the shoes at Gravity Defyer, but I've been trying to change a lot of the stuff that I use, personal care, like wipes, toothpaste, soap, cleaning detergents, sunscreen, all that kind of stuff, all the essentials, because I don't want to not only give it to big companies like Walmart and Target or whatever, but I want to vote with my wallet. I've told you guys this, and I found a better way. I've got a manufacturer that's been around for 39 years with conservative values that MAGA can get behind. It's more effective, it's more natural, it's more affordable, and it's a family-owned U.S. manufacturer that supports U.S. jobs, whatever. So 2 million people have already done this. I'm a convert to it. I'm going to have to Zoom call, explain to you what I'm talking about. If you want to do this, we've got a small number of spaces. Space is limited. So text INVITE, EINVITE, to 276-500-1185 to claim your spot for Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Text INVITE to 276-500-1185. I'll put all that in the show notes on YouTube if you're interested as well. Again, a big week that we've got ahead of you right now for the show. Marsha Blackburn, Senator from Tennessee, Andy Harris, Congressman from Maryland, are here tomorrow. Erica Donald, Selena Zito, and then a great panel Thursday and an unbelievable discussion on working with Trump on Friday. Thanks for starting your week with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow on The Sean Spicer Show.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.